On September 8, 2017, the country music world was hit by the wave of disbelief, but not for the reason anyone anticipated. Troy Gentry, one half of the iconic country duo, Montgomery Gentry, was just hours away from taking the stage in New Jersey. With chart-topping hits like My Town, Something to Be Proud of and Gone, the duo cemented their standing in country music for over a decade. However, just hours before the concert, tragedy struck. Join us as we cover the story of Troy Gentry, from his early dreams to final moments that left a deep mark on country music. Troy Lee Gentry was born on April 5, 1967, in Lexington, Kentucky. He grew up listening to country icons like George Jones, Merle Haggard, Randy Travis, and Hank Williams Jr. As a little boy, Troy started singing in his free time and learned how to play the guitar. By the time he was in his teenage years, he was already performing at local bars with a clear voice full of promise. Yet the path ahead wasn't all smooth picking. He started working at his father's restaurant to help him while attending Lexington Community College. But it was clear from the start that his mind was set on something else. In 1994, a pivotal moment occurred when Troy Gentry won the Jim Beam National Talent Contest. That win sent him on the stage as an opening act for stars like Patty Loveless and Tracy Bride. It was around this time Troy met Eddie Montgomery. Some even say their friendship began years ago when they first met at a local community concert. They were like two country kids back then who both loved to play, Hank Jr. and Leonard Skinner on the radio. By 1998, they officially joined forces and started calling themselves Montgomery Gentry, which is a blend of their last names. The following year, in 1999, they released their first debut album, Tattoos and Scars. Their music was a gritty mix of southern rock and traditional country, which was unusual at the time. From a first track, it felt real and fans loved them immediately. Soon after, they were performing in arenas and state fairs where people stood up and danced to their songs. Their visibility started increasing, and so did their popularity. Their albums reached gold and some even reached platinum. Few songs like My Town, Hell Yeah, and Speed became the anthem for small-town America. That same year, when their music was taking off, Troy found love offstage. In December 1999, he married Angie McClure on the beaches of Maui. They had a daughter, Taylor, from an earlier relationship, and together Angie and Troy welcomed another daughter, Kaylee, in 2002. He loved his family, and more importantly, his daughters. In fact, people who knew him often used to call him a family man. Fellow artists would say he was always proud to be a dad. He had a dream, and had even promised his daughter Kylie that when she turned 15, he would take her to walk the red carpet. Little did he know that dream would come true just without him. Over the years, Montgomery Gentry won almost every award they could. ACM Duo of the Year, CMA Duo of the Year, Favorite New Artist, you name it. In 2009, they even earned something that every country singer dreamed about, a coveted spot at the Grand Ole Opry. It is a stage in Nashville, which is considered as the holy ground for country stars. During their performance at the Opry stage, the crowd rose in applause, proud that these two Kentuckians had made it that far. By 2015, Montgomery Gentry had 10 albums under their belt. They started doing concerts, and wherever they went, the crowd went wild. During one of their tours, Montgomery Gentry was scheduled to perform at the Flying W Airport and Resort in Medford, New Jersey. The venue staff had been buzzing with excitement for weeks. When their tour bus finally rolled in, fans and organizers alike felt that rush, the kind that only comes when legends are about to take the stage. What would have been one of the best concerts of the year turned into something else entirely. On September 8, 2017, Montgomery Gentry started gearing up for the late-night show. Ironically, the venue had reached out weeks in advance to offer helicopter rides as a part of their hospitality. That got Troy excited, and he wanted to do a quick tour of the area. Early that afternoon, Troy hopped into a small two-seater Schweizer 269C helicopter, along with a pilot named James Evan. Eddie waved him off with a brotherly handshake, and even joked about getting him a cold beer from the sky. As the helicopter started soaring the skies above New Jersey, things started to feel a little off. James was the first one to catch on to the situation. He quickly radioed into Unicom about the issue with the twist grip engine control, which is basically used to control the RPM of the rotor blades. No matter how he adjusted it, the engine RPM stayed the same. By 12:45 p.m., The local police department got a call from the witnesses, informing them about the helicopter flying unusually at a low altitude. Authorities quickly rushed to the hotel, informing about the issue. Eddie, who had been getting ready for the show just moments earlier, now stood frozen. Meanwhile, in the air, the situation was not getting any better. The helicopter hovered midair, caught in what can only be described as a mechanical limbo. Around 1 p.m., the pilot made the decision to do the auto-rotation, which is in fact a risky technique among pilots. Basically, during this maneuver, the pilot has to shut down the engine and do power-off descent. James was confident in his skills, as he had successfully pulled this maneuver before. When they were 950 feet above the ground, the descent began. However, as the aircraft dropped, the speed became too much to even control for James. He tried to stabilize the craft, but the engine had given up on them. Within seconds, the Schweizer 269C crashed, striking the ground just 220 feet south of runway 01. The impact was so severe that it left a 10-foot scar on the ground. Miraculously, the helicopter crashed away from the nearby crowd, avoiding what could have been an even greater disaster. Authorities quickly arrived at the scene. The wreckage was still hot, and smoke was rising from the crushed frame of the helicopter. Troy was pulled from the twisted metal, still breathing though barely. He had a pulse, and for a moment, there was hope. The pilot, James, on the other side, had died on impact. Troy was immediately taken to the nearby Virtua hospital for treatment. However, the injuries were too severe, and by the early evening, Troy Gentry took his final breath with Eddie by his side, clutching his hand. Nobody there could believe that the Troy who was with them just hours ago was now gone. Soon the news hit the headlines, and the entire country music world felt the tremors. Social media exploded with grief when Eddie posted an official statement about the tragedy. Radio stations across the country stopped their usual broadcast to play Montgomery Gentry classics back-to-back. At the venue, fans who had been in the crowd just hours before were now lighting candles in their driveways, some even pointing their car headlights at the sky in salute. And as if the day hadn't taken enough, another country icon, Don Williams, passed away that very same day. A few days after the crash, a wave of assumptions started forming throughout the fan base. Some even went and accused the whole incident as pilot error. However, when the official report was finally released, it completely ruled out that possibility. It was more mechanical error, something which was beyond their control. The investigation revealed that James, the pilot, had done everything he could to bring the helicopter down safely. In fact, the pilot, James, had over 481 hours of flight experience, with more than 300 hours specifically in helicopters. Hearing this gave some amount of comfort to the fans, which meant Troy was just taken by fate. At the Gentry house, the pain was heavier. Amie Gentry and her daughters tried to find a normal life, but nothing could replace what they had lost. They even kept Troy's bedroom the same for a long time, hoping perhaps by some miracle he might walk back to the door one day. In the midst of grief, plans for Montgomery Gentry's future suddenly loomed. Eddie Montgomery announced he would continue touring under the same name, calling it Troy's Wish. "It felt like one half of my soul just vanished," he said during an interview. Back in Nashville, a public memorial service was held on September 14, 2017 at the Grand Ole Opry, a place which was normally used for celebrations, filled instead with quiet sobs and hymns. Vance Gill and many others sang My Town, one of the iconic songs from Montgomery Gentry, and paid their tributes. Just months later, at the 2017 Country Music Association Awards, Troy's memory took center stage. Angie and Kaylee, courageous and still in shock, walked the red carpet, just without Troy. Kaylee, the daughter he had once promised to walk beside on that very carpet, now took those steps alone. The dream he once spoke of had come true, just not the way anyone had imagined. Later on, Angie started organizing concerts under the Troy Gentry Foundation to keep his spirit alive. In January 2019, at the Grand Ole Opry House, more than 10,000 fans gathered for a tribute show called See on the Flip Side, hosted by Blake Shelton. The stage was filled with stars. Even Charlie Daniels showed up. They all came together to perform and raise money for causes that Troy cared about. By the end of the night, they had raised over $300,000 for charity. For many, it felt right that the same Opry stage which once welcomed Montgomery Gentry with open arms was now the place where fans, friends, and fellow artists stood together, honoring Troy's life with music, love, and generosity. Yes, Country music lost a voice that day, but Troy's voice still sings through the miles of memories he left us. In the roar of a pickup engine, the shimmer of a Broadway star, and the laughter of an audience, you can hear him. And as long as those echoes remain, Troy Gentry is never truly gone. If you love this story and want to see more just like it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.